Hi, everybody.
Welcome to the show.
Today we are talking about
Creativity.
We were recently asked to do an article about creativity, and we will link that below.
Yeah.
It was published.
That was a really cool experience.
Something new for us.
Yeah.
But we thought we would talk about it a little bit more because by most people's standards, we are quite creative people.
Yeah. So our backgrounds, I went to Performing Arts High School, and now I get to teach at that high school, which is really cool. And I teach media and music.
And I went to the same high school. I was a dance major, and I danced there 20 hours a week. And then later on, I did a lot of work in musicals and directing children's musicals and productions with kids for our local church.
Yep.
So we have quite extensive arts backgrounds. So by most people's standards, we are a very creative couple, I would say. Would you agree?
People say that.
First things we want to say about creativity are...
Creativity requires hard work.
Yeah. People think that being creative is like being talented.
Yeah.
And that it's just something that you're just born with. So some people can be very talented. For example, maybe they're really good at drawing, but they don't necessarily put in the time and the effort and the practice into it, so they don't really develop past a certain point.
Yeah.
Creativity is the same way.
Yeah, people can be creative and have creative ideas, but unless you are practicing that creativity and working at it and building things or coming up with different ideas.
It's a muscle. Creativity is a muscle, just like working your biceps. It's the same thing. You got to practice and use it regularly. So that's number one. The other thing we want to say about creativity, people often confuse creativity and imagination.
Yeah, imagination is being able to come up with ideas and imagine things that aren't there, but creativity is...
In your head.
Yeah, in your head. But creativity is putting it, making it real, making it something that you can touch and feel and see. So
imagination and creativity go together in the idea that imagination is what gives you the idea to do something. So for example, we were talking about Alexi's been building this bus.
Yeah.
This is what we talked about in the article, is this bus. So she had this idea that she wanted to build this bus. Creativity is actually the steps going through to make what she has in her head a reality. So picking the colors, cutting out the windows the way she wanted, putting the 16 wheels on it. That was what was in her head. That is creativity versus the imagination of just dreaming it up in your head.
Yeah, so we had this box that we had been saving up downstairs. And since the weather got nicer, we were able to take it out and start cutting it up. And we got paints together, and we actually mixed paints because we wanted to try to get it the school bus color. Yeah,
she has decided, since she's not going to school this year, she wanted to build a school bus for herself.
That she could ride.
So this has been in her head for a couple of weeks, and this was her imagination. Was building a school bus that she could ride. The creativity part was actually making it match her vision of what was in her head.
And one part of that was, where she really got creative was with the amount of wheels that went on the bus. Because we're thinking, okay, it's going to have 4 or 6 wheels, 2 double axle at the back kind of thing. But nope, she wanted 16 wheels, 8 on each side.
Yep.
Actually, she wanted 20, but we compromised on 16.
We ran out of cardboard to make the 16 wheels, the 20 wheels, which is why we ended up at 16. But that's the difference between imagination and creativity. They go together, and imagination feeds creativity, but they're not the same.
No.
So those are some things that we wanted to put out there. The last thing I want to say about, before we get into some tips, the last thing we wanted to say was creative thinking is not just about the arts.
No, it's not just about the arts. Yeah. You can see it in lots of different areas. I have 3 cousins who are all engineers, and I have other cousins who are in fields other than the arts who are very, very creative thinkers in business and in computer sciences. And so about a month and a half ago, we got a new bike, tag-along bike for Alexi.
You'll probably see in some of our videos, like our biking videos.
Yeah.
We can link here. She has this bike that goes behind your bike.
So we were putting it together, and we were putting the handlebars on, and I went, uh-oh, it's not really the right size, and Amanda right away said...
Well, the thing was, it was like the handlebars, the way it said to put them on Alexi, it was like
she couldn't reach.
She would never reach the handlebars.
So Amanda, right away, quick thinking, said, "Just let's flip them around." And
flip. It was just a creative thinking moment of like, okay, this isn't going to work, so let's change it and turn it and rotate it. That's what it was. It was turning and then rotating the handlebars to face the other way. Yeah. And now it fits her because it moved basically handlebars back like 8 inches for her.
Yeah, so it's perfect.
So that's creative thinking in a way that's not the arts.
Yeah. The other thing this summer, which I thought was really cool, was Alexi was using her creative planning thinking, which I think she gets from Amanda. So we were coming home and we were going to go out for lunch, and Alexi had a plan. She said, okay, let's try and look for this restaurant, and if we can't find it, then we're going to go back here and we can go there. And she had the whole plan all figured out.
And it's planning out multiple scenarios, right? So if we can't find this place, we'll go to this place because they're nearby. Yeah. And that's creative thinking in a totally different way. It's coming up with options outside of what, having just one plan. If it doesn't work out, we have this one. And that's just another form of creative thinking. Yeah. So creative thinking is not limited to arts at all. Yeah. So if you want to foster some creativity in your homeschool or in your class or in your life, there are some simple steps that you can do to kind of foster that. So we have 5 tips for fostering creativity.
So tip number 1 is to let them explore different materials regularly. So just making sure that the Lego are out and that your kids can sit down and play and explore and try new things and put the different Lego pieces together in different ways.
Or maybe it's having regular access to markers and paper or
the Play-Doh.
These are all different materials that can be really helpful to let kids explore. And maybe it's not even a material like this. Like maybe it's just having a cardboard box and just letting them use that in any way their brain thinks of. Maybe it's their rocket ship today. Maybe it's going to be their bus tomorrow. Those are just allowing them to explore these materials and these different things, allows them their imagination to start, and then it lets them take it different ways and makes them use their creativity to make it happen.
Yeah, making those different connections, right? Taking things that are supposed to be one way and taking it apart and putting it together in a new way.
Yeah. Tip number 2. This is a hard one for parents.
Yeah. Don't impose your ideas or your thoughts on the creative process. So, for instance, the bus, going back to that, I could have easily said, we're putting 4 wheels on this bus, right?
Because that's what buses have. They have 4 wheels.
Yeah. And no, Alexi wanted the 20 wheels or 16 wheels, and that's what we did.
That's what we did, because that's part of creativity, is letting them practice and make what their mind says. Because maybe in her head, this is an off-roading bus and it needs to go in the woods. So
it's an Argo.
It's an Argo bus. But for us, we have our ideas based on like our experience and what we have learned and the way our world view is because of how we've lived our lives.
And it's boxed in and it gets smaller and smaller.
Yeah. By letting them have chances to just make what they want to make, regardless of whether it's functional or practical. Yeah. It lets them experience creativity in a whole different way, and they're not being boxed in by what we think is right. Yeah.
Number 3.
Another one parents have a hard time with.
Mistakes.
Let them make mistakes.
Kids gotta make mistakes.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, doing a lot of drawing. Both my parents are artists, and I don't think I ever used the eraser. It was about turning that mistake into something that I could use for the piece.
And it's not just like that kind of mistakes, but it's like thinking of our bus, right? This is a perfect example. Alexi wanted 20 wheels on her bus. Yeah. And she came up with how these wheels were going to be made. It was this leftover piece of cardboard that was going to be cut and taped together.
And she showed me. She said, I want this cardboard cut here, and we're going to
roll it up like this and paint them black. But once they had done that, she had run out of materials. So essentially, it was a mistake in the sense that there wasn't 20 wheels, but she took that and rolled with it and was able to say, well, okay, I can't have 20 wheels, but I will have 16, and then figuring out what she could do with that. Yeah. So it's things like that is, yes, there's going to be mistakes, but letting them find ways to fix it or to incorporate this mistake into their creative project, because that's part of learning, is that things don't always go the way you planned. They never go the way you plan, and how to kind of work around that situation. Yeah. That's an important part of creative thinking.
And the creative process.
It's like constant. It's a circle. I remember learning this in dance class, that the creative process is like a circle that constantly feeds back to the middle. Like you're always
reflecting,
going around.
changes.
So it's just part of the process.
So number 4 is making sure your kids have access to open-ended toys and materials. So like cardboard boxes and Lego and blocks and
Play-Doh. Because these are things that let kids make what they want to make out of them. It's not necessarily, for example, Zoe loves her Little People farm. It has the animals. She definitely plays with them, and there is some creative play that she has imagination that's going on. But having toys that don't necessarily have a strict purpose means that kids have to use them in multiple ways to do what they want to do with them. And that's an important part of fostering creativity and fostering how to get kids to think differently and use things in different ways.
I had lots of different cars when I was a kid. I actually still have them. Alexi and Zoe play with them. And I would build different cities. I would actually create different towns and roadways through the carpet and stuff. I remember doing this when I was like 5 years old. And so using cars that, you might look at and say, well, that's not creative. It's a car. It's already made. But using them in creative ways to build different things, and I would make roads and on-ramps and highways and all sorts of stuff.
So toys like we said, Lego that are not sets, kind of like the classic stuff, building blocks, arts and crafts supplies, Play-Doh. These are all different kind of materials that can be used very open-endedly, and those are important. And letting kids use toys that they have in different ways too is important. So sometimes the kids will grab, mittens or different things, and they're like, oh, this is now my cookie or my whatever. Sometimes letting them do that is also a great way to let them use a material in a different way. So
for instance, going back to the Lego, if you have those Lego sets, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. Following instructions and putting together a Lego, that's a skill. That's important. But then it's okay to we built this thing. It's really cool. No, let's take it apart and
build something different.
Build something new.
See what we can build with these pieces.
And that's exciting.
Yes.
Because who knows where it's going to take you.
So our last tip number 5, kind of goes back to the beginning when we were talking about creativity and talent and how it's a skill that you need to practice. So our tip is that to practice and to let kids have regular time to practice being creative. So that means giving kids time to actually sit down and explore these materials, to have like Alexi has kind of dedicated Lego time that we give her on a regular basis. So usually during either her quiet times or sometimes in the morning, we suggest that, hey, why don't you go play with your Lego? And she sits down and she builds different things. Right now she's really into building buses, so she's built quite a few buses.
And she built her police car.
Her police car, that was something that's been a new project for her, is trying to build this police car. But letting her have that time, because that's something that she really enjoys and is a very creative thing for her to do, and giving her that dedicated time to practice this skill. And it's not a bad idea for parents to practice that skill either, to practice having a moment of creativity. And
I think another thing, practicing that creative process, going through the creative process, will make it more familiar to them, and they'll be less afraid to be creative. Because when you're creating stuff, you're putting yourself out on the line there.
It's a little intimidating, and that's why you see so many people when they're older have a hard time expressing themselves creatively, because they've never had to do that and never had to put themselves out there or do something and see it fail or not work out the way they planned. But if you're practicing that all the time and they have these chances to explore that and do it when it's safe and at home, they're more likely to be okay with trying new things and trying something that's a little riskier later on in life.
It makes them more comfortable. Right?
Makes them more comfortable. Those are our tips for today on creativity, and we hope that you guys can find some time to be creative with your kids this week and on a regular basis.
So if you like this video and you like our other videos, make sure that you click subscribe and click on the bell. That way you get notified when we have new videos. And follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And we'll see you next week.
See you guys later. Bye.
Bye. If you like what you saw, please subscribe to our channel and click on the bell to get notifications when we upload our latest videos.
Give us a thumbs up and don't forget to leave us a comment. We'll see you next week for more activities, adventures, and lifelong learning. Bye!